Okay, so let's attack this spoke. First note that this is sped up about 4 times, so this spoke probably took me about an hour and a half to do. So the first thing we need to do, obviously, is get some clay in there, and I'm going to use a sphere, lob it in there. It's in the center, so let's adjust it and put it over the spoke where we need to. It's very low resolution, but that's okay for now. Just getting set up here. Now we're moving it so that it's over the spoke somewhat. It doesn't really matter if it's perfect at this point because we're going to be moving and shifting things around as we model. So I'm using, in this instance, a trim curve, and the trim curve can be, you can put those little, you can bend it by tapping the Alt key, but unfortunately you get this webbing because this is not the knife tool. If you have the newest version of ZBrush, you'll have the knife tool, and it's a lot better in this respect. So I'm just kind of lobbing off areas to get this general mask in which we're going to model, right? So that's about it. We have some issues here, and I'm going to correct those. I found out that I had to do this several times to get the right blob of clay to start off with. What I didn't realize at first was that it wasn't oriented along the section, so I wasn't really getting what I needed. But make sure it's oriented along the section, so that when you're peering down it in section view, that you can actually see it. But I've got a lob now, and I did a Control W to make it into one poly group, and then dynameshed it so that I can have equal polygons. And we talked about that. Doing another clip here, so that again, we're getting closer to the form. What I don't want to do is use the clip curve like we did earlier and get precise lines. What we're going to do in this particular one is we're going to model with the trim dynamic, with the hard polish brush, and get closer and closer to those lines in plan view. Now I'm using a projection method to project it on the clay, and that's easy enough to do. It's in the draw menu, and I'll show you that. By the way, there's going to be a longer version of this video, which is going to be, again, an hour or so long. But if you need more detail, you can watch that video. It's essentially the same thing, but slowed down, and with the audio that I was capturing as I was doing it. A lot longer, but you may need that. But here I'm using not the trim dynamic, but the clay buildup brush, and pressing Alt to do a reverse. Instead of building it up, I'm knocking it down. As you can see, I'm getting closer and closer to those scribed lines. And by the way, you don't always have to use the pencil brush or anything like that to get to have reference. I just used the damn standard brush and inscribed those lines, and now that's given me enough direction in order to knock that surface down. So it's smoothing here, knocking down there. You know how to smooth. That's pressing Shift key. And getting closer and closer to those lines. I'm going to use a series of brushes doing this. Mainly the clay buildup brush, the trim dynamic, and the hard polish brush. These are my friends here in this particular piece. Because in this piece we're actually sculpting as opposed to using some quick method. And it's important to do it this way because really what I want you to learn more than anything else is sculpting. So I'm using the damn standard brush to scribe those lines on, as you can see. And now with that, I can use my clay builder brush or trim dynamic to knock them down to those lines on both sides and then in the middle. I mean, it's dirty, but this is how you get closer and closer to where you need to be. Now, as you knock things down on the side, you may need to readjust other views. So in this instance, I'm using the move tool to move that top view over to the line and then continuing. And this is a trim dynamic. Here I'm using the mask. This is a lasso mask, and I'm just going to push this up, knock it down and push it up, just to show you another method of getting close. We've got a little piece that needs to be dealt with there. That's a little webbing. So I'm just going to move it over, I think with my move tool. And that's good enough. And then we're going to go back and just dynamesh it. And so that's good enough. Back and forth. Again, this is hard polish brush. And you can see that with the hard polish brush and this back and forth, I'm getting smoother and smoother and yet smoother and smoother. I haven't really added a lot of subdivisions yet. In fact, there's no subdivisions beyond what was initial to the start. So there's a lot you can do when the subdivisions are very low. You don't necessarily have to add a lot of resolution in order to get closer and closer. But this is, if I'm not mistaken, I have added some resolution and then deleted the lower subdivisions. And if you watch the video with the long version, you'll see how I've done that. Now I've used the selection tool just to see only a part of it. And this is very helpful when you're trying to really get closer and closer with detail and other, you don't want the other things to be in the way. So it's easy to just hide parts of the model so that you just get right in there. And in this instance, I hid a lot of the model because there's a big fillet, a plan view fillet that if it were in the way, I'd be crashing into that. So by, getting rid of it. And in this instance, I'm just going to actually hide part of that like that and delete the hidden. This is an important thing. So I go over to geometry. It's there in my marking menus, but I can go over to geometry dynamesh and then it'll just put a face right on there and that's only after I delete the hidden portion. So I knew I didn't really need all of that fell down further down the spoke. So it's all good. And then I'm going to put some controlling lines at the bottom to help me know where to shave to. And with the clay builder brush, just knock that down too. That's extra guide to really get down close. Did a little bit of smoothing, back and forth smoothing. You don't want to smooth too much, but smoothing does help. Clay builder brush to knock down some portions. So, even sometimes it's necessary to even do, the move tool. Now here, this is a tricky process. I'm actually flipping the surface. The surface has the regular face and the top and the bottom, and I'm looking from the inside out in this instance, and this is allowing me to get into some surface that would be harder to get to otherwise, that inside. So I'm flipping inside and out just to model certain parts, and that's using flip. That's in the display properties. That's in the tool menu, and then display properties, and then flip inside and out. So you can see closer and closer. We're getting closer and closer. Actually, I drug the flip menu because I think I'm going to be using that more often. I drug it down to my shelf, my tray there at the bottom. So I don't have to go to the menu over and over again. I can go down. And I think I also added a hotkey to it, which was 0. Now we've got a lot of subdivisions on there. I think I added about 3 subdivisions to there, and we went over that earlier this week on Monday. But now you can see with using the hard polish brush, you can see that you'll see that these edges are really becoming tight. Now this is the move tool. I just move things down a little bit. Edges are really becoming tight. Which is what they need to become. Forgive the air condition. It's coming on and you'll hear a little bit of sound in the background, but can't help that. So using the move tool to adjust, making sure that we're hitting, and then there's my cat. We're hitting, just to make sure that we're hitting the lines right on. Using the move tool just to move those in just right. And of course, with my hard polish brush, hit the sides. And now this is the pinch tool. I'm pinching just to get that edge a little harder in this rad or the fillet. And then the hard polish brush. So very dense the mesh is, and I think we've gotten close enough. We're getting really close. Of course, I can noodle this even more, but as we progress, it'll get closer and closer until we'll be right up on those lines, the top view and also the section view. And then now throwing in the array mesh to see how that looks. Fairly close, turning on the top view, and you can see that everything is kind of aligned. The reason why as it crashes through the hub it doesn't align with the intersections is because there's no section on the spokes yet. So we're going to have to do that next. It needs to be flat with the rim, so I'm just using the hard polish brush to kind of knock that down to make sure it's flat with the rim. And just pushing some parts in so that we don't see it from the top view. Just a little bit of cleanup. And so, there you go. There's the alias model, but there's some sections. You can see the sections on the top that we need to achieve. So that's next. Those are the sections that we need to get into the model right there. And we're going to do that smaller little spoke that connects the in between later. But the first thing we need to do is get these like bevels. You can see these bevels on the spoke. I'm just using the move tool to still adjust a little bit to make sure that we have enough meat and that it's hitting the plan view. So as before, I was going to use a lazy mouse actually. I decided not to use that. Lazy mouse helps you to have a cleaner, less jagged line. But you know what? Just using the damn standard and do just exactly. In fact, I'm not going to even use a damn standard. I'm just going to use the pencil. You'll see. No, let's use the mask. We're just going to mask this portion. It's kind of fuzzy. The mask is kind of fuzzy. So we're going to go to samples or tablet pressure and adjust that into a straight line. So you can see now that that mask is a lot tighter. The edge is not as fuzzy. And we're just kind of knocking in that. We're flipping it to make sure it's right. And then knocking down this side, because all we want to do is deal with that edge. That's sort of like a notch. So let's hide the rim, turn off the array, and you can see the line that we need to hit in side view. So with that, I'm just going to, you can see the mask there. I'm hiding the mask and showing the mask, making sure that we have it all unmasked where it's necessary and masked where it's necessary. And then we can just move this down. Watch what we do. Let's just hit this line right where we need to hit it. And then we're going to use the trim curve, not the trim curve, the clip curve, just to hit that line. So the mask in one view prevented it from going all the way down. So now we have that notch that's important in the section. Now I'm using the pencil tool just to mark where we need to bevel off to in both views. Also that one too. And now with the trim dynamic, we're beveling off, trying to hit those lines that we just inscribed on the surface. I'm not so much worried about where it's hitting the hub, because that's going to be intersecting the hub and you won't see all that mess. But you can see that we're really getting close to the wheel. I'm using a combination of all the tools that I mentioned before, the move tool, the damn standard, the hard polish brush, the trim dynamic, all of them in concert to get these the lines to match up with the section. It's going pretty fast, I know, and it's sort of disconcerting a little bit because I'm going so fast. But again, I'll put both videos up, the slow one and the fast one. But you can see I'm knocking down with the trim dynamic. Knocking down with the trim dynamic, the section that folds. And by the way, sometimes changing the shader can help you really see your sections better. So that's what you saw me do. I kind of rotated through the shaders to kind of see that. But it's not too bad. I'm going to stretch this out a little bit so it can go through cleanly through the hub. And then again, inscribing another line. So, because I know that this little notch bevels down somewhat. So with the trim dynamic, let's bevel down some. Obviously, this is 4 times, probably about 4 times sped up. So it's going to take a lot more time than what you see here. For me, it took an hour, maybe an hour and a half to really get this close. It may even take you longer. So don't think that it should take you this fast. But hopefully, by showing you how I'm doing this, it won't. You'll be ahead of the game. I'm using the move tool and the trim dynamic just to really get this area to read. And that's the hard polish brush. Remember that I have a lot of, in this instance, I have a lot of resolution on this. So that's why I'm able to get these harder, more crisp lines. And now I'm using the method of selecting just a part so I can get just right into certain parts. And I was able to get a cleaner line by doing it that way. As you can see, it's really tightening up. It's almost like doing a Photoshop actually, because when you're doing, you start out with a broad view, and then you keep on inching away at it to finally you have a refined sketch. Same thing. Now I'm bringing back everything, and there you go. That's what we have, and that's where we need to go a little further than that.